Hey guys, it's Bernie Gallerani again, bringing another episode of Success is Not Convenient. We have a fun one today. This is one I'm looking forward to doing. We talked about it about a week and a half or so ago, and we put together some information about how to team build, and not only how to team build, but more importantly, how and what our challenges have been by team building. So I brought my partner in, Curt. Curt's been operations manager for the last 10 years. We were, 4 agents when you got here, maybe something like that. So we were
Very
a small little group. I was selling a lot of houses personally, and I had some agents, and I needed some help and brought Curt in, and Curt has really done a fantastic job in helping us just kind of launch this thing to what it is today. So it was fun because when did we celebrate our $2 billion in sales? Was it about 6 months ago, maybe?
Yeah, right about 6 months ago.
6 months ago. And so Curt and I have worked together for the last 10 years to build our agent team. We're doing just under 300 million right now. And so I went to Curt and I'm like, what would be fun to do is do a podcast and just kind of share with everybody out there our struggles, what we've learned from team building, and maybe give some good insight to those people who are considering building a team. It's a great option if you guys choose to do it. We can certainly, hopefully, give some insight to there. And if you're an agent, maybe you can learn some things from here. So, Curt, thank you for
having me. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Being a part of all of this. So it's
this will be a lot of fun.
And here's the good news. Curt and I are going to be really well rehearsed here because we just filmed it for almost an hour and forgot to hit the record button. So my hour or so podcast is going to be...
They should get a better video now.
We're nice and warmed up and prepared, right? So so it's fun. So when you came to us 10 years ago, I guess 2016, right?
Yes.
When you came to us, you were like the restaurant business, I think, right? Previous to that.
I mean, like 15 years in the restaurant business, had worked for a bunch of big corporate companies, had done my own. And so I was coming in totally fresh to this business. And I think we felt like taking more of a training approach and being, better suited to, how do we help our people succeed was going to work, which is why I think we were hopeful that it was going to be a good match.
Well, I don't think you or I even expected to have what we have today. I mean, that wasn't my vision, right? I was really just trying to get some help with the team.
Sure.
Right. And I'll never forget when you I think it was a few months, you had kind of solved some of the problems that I was dealing with the team at the time. And you're like, okay, well, now what do you want me to do? I'm kind of bored. I'm like, I don't know, go hire somebody else.
Yeah. So we worked on that.
And what was fun is I think we had, I don't know, maybe 8 agents at that time. And we had people working in the kitchen. Well, you were working in the kitchen.
I was working in the kitchen.
Yeah, you were working in the kitchen. We had people in the conference room prospecting until we had closings, and we're like kicking out the agents that were prospecting. And so it was quite the operation. And I even remember, and so just so everyone knows today, like we're in a 12,000 square foot building. And back then we were in a 1,800 square foot building. And we decided to go lease some space next door, and that was pretty scary, right?
It was, we're like, oh gosh, can we pay the rent over there?
Yeah, like I remember calling my coach Mike Ferry and just saying, hey Mike, man, I mean, I'm gonna have to move over here, and he asked me, well, how much is the rent? And I think it was like $2,000 a month or something. And he goes like, well, what about lights and electricity? I said maybe $3,000, and he says, come on, man, that's a no-brainer. You're gonna so it's fun to look back and think about the fears. Sure. Right? I mean, and this is a good conversation because people that are thinking about building a team have a lot of what ifs. Like, well, what if this and what if that? We've been through all those early what ifs. We still have a lot of what ifs.
We do.
So what I want to try to do today is try to help people to understand a little of our journey. And I think even sharing our pain.
Sure.
Right? Like, what was our hardest time, right? So, well, let's just get into like what we think, what's the best way we can help people who are listening. Sure. So let's just start with team building. What's the biggest, you think, misconception that an agent has about joining a team like ours?
Yeah. Well, and when we first started, teams didn't even exist, right? So as we were pitching our program, agents were just like, well, I need to join a brokerage, so I'll give you a shot, right?
Yeah.
I think agents sometimes, when they're considering a team, they are actually thinking that it's probably going to be easier than it really will be. Okay. Right? And because we're going to make it sound easy in the interview, unfortunately. But they think that with our support, it's going to feel like just any other job. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't work that way. It's actually a really difficult business that we're in. And so even with our support, which is going to give them a better chance to make it than they ever would have on their own, it's still a really difficult business.
Yeah. When you said we make it sound easier, is because to us it seems easier? Because you said,
yeah, well, because we've built the systems
Yeah.
over the years and we've got the processes that work. So we watch it work every day. And so for me to watch an agent go out and sell 20 or 30 homes a year, that seems very achievable, right? Because we see agents do it all the time. But when you're a brand new agent and you've sold 0 houses, that learning curve is very steep.
because I like what you said, and I think that when we coach and train agents and we have conversations through the journey that they have with us, as we speak, it sounds easy to us, right? Because we've lived in that ecosystem for so long. To us, like what do they say? It's a very simple business. The simple concept of the business is just not easy, and the not easy is that we're trying as agents, new agents, trying to process it all, right? So, I think what I'm hearing you say is, when you present it, you look at the simple side of the system, right?
Yes.
You come in, you pick up leads, you have some training calls that we put you on, and you be the great, fantastic agent that you are, and then you sell a bunch of houses and make a bunch of money. It does sound pretty simple.
Just trust it.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
No.
So it's really is it the behavior of the agent that's the hard part? It's not the system.
Well, I think we're always fighting the behaviors of the agents, because if you really want to think about why most people get into this business, is they've got that entrepreneurial spirit, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're an independent contractor, I think you kind of get this, your focuses are on all of the freedoms that you're going to have versus really realizing what you're about to commit to.
Yeah, my take on all of that is life's just a lot harder than we envision it to be.
Yes.
I mean, people all say, "Oh, that took me a lot longer than I thought," or "That was a lot harder." I think most things are a lot harder than people think. It's just we're not familiar with it, right? In our experience through training and hiring agents, what do most team leaders miss out on when they're looking at bringing agents in, and is it controlling? Is the team leader missing understanding, controlling the difficulty that an agent has? Like, is it the difficulty? Because we're talking about agents who are coming in. We've experienced hundreds of agents, right, within our organization. Team leaders now looking and listening to this, what should they be focused on so they can improve their interview process, their coaching, their training, their accountability?
Well, I guess it depends on what your goal is, right? If you want to have just a pretty traditional brokerage with agents selling 2 to 4 homes a year, you can probably get away with, hey, let's just give this thing a shot. For us, the investment is super high in each agent. So we've got to be pretty sure that they're going to have some success before we agree to bring them in. And so what I'm really looking for is I've got to find someone who's the breadwinner in their family, right? Because unless you're the breadwinner, sometimes it's very, very hard, no matter how skillful you think you are or how hard you want to work, until you absolutely have to make it work. The rejection is just so high in our business. Sometimes you can overcome that.
I think all of us who run teams have high levels of expectation because we've done it at a high level, or we typically wouldn't be a team owner. If you haven't sold real estate at a high level, you probably shouldn't be a team leader. Would be my suggestion, but I could be wrong there. I would say that we have to lower our expectations, because I have very high expectations in the agents that come in here. And what I've learned over 22 years is I have to lower my expectation. Doesn't mean I have to lower my accountability. It doesn't mean that I have to lower my standards in any way, but I have to look at an agent and say, how do I meet you where you are? I used to think everybody, and I still believe everybody everyone can sell 50, 60, 70 homes a year. Just most choose not to.
Yes.
And that I don't relate to. I can't understand why they wouldn't want to do it, but everybody has a different life, and so they look at things a little bit differently. So what do you think when you hear agents saying, I would like to be trained and I'd like to be held accountable? So you hear that a lot from.
Well, that's what they all want, is training. And every broker out there, you're going to sit with them and they're going to tell you that their training is the best, right? Every broker is going to feel that way, and I think training can be defined lots of different ways. The accountability sounds great because as human beings, we all know that, if left to our own devices, we're probably not going to, be super motivated, right? And unless something is really driving you to have to succeed every single day, which is why we mentioned the breadwinner.
Yeah.
It's really hard for us to motivate the agent. It just is.
They want the success, I think, but they don't want to change who they are to get it, right? So
Yes.
have you ever seen an agent come in here and not struggle? Like even the top agents, let's go with
Sure.
our top people, right? Making, let's just say $500,000 a year or more. Have you ever seen anybody come in and do a really excellent job at the job of selling houses and serving people where they didn't have to change their thought process?
No. Everyone has to change it at some point. And for each agent, they're going to hit that wall at a different production level, right? I never really know where that pain point's going to show up because everyone has a different bandwidth when they come in, right? Or a different motor, however you want to look at it. But everybody is going to get to that breakdown moment where they realize, oh gosh, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And you wonder like how, because there's a lot of really, I've met some tremendously great people who just couldn't do it no matter how hard they tried, right?
Yes.
We've had several people who dedicate
Incredible people.
so much time in the company and they just aren't successful. What is the reason, do you think? Because you and I have always talked about, we have no idea. We could love them at the presentation, or we could not even think they were that great at the presentation, but thought they could sell. But we bring them into the company, and ones we think are going to be really great, not good at all, and other ones are like, okay, maybe they'll be okay, and then they end up setting the world on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I think you either have it or you don't, right? Because you're going to have to ask the client to sign the contract. You're going to have to ask them what they want to offer on the house, and there are just some people that really struggle with asking for the business. I actually think that is like the one moment in time that you lose the client, and the client is going to feel that, right? So I can't teach you. I can teach you what to say, but I can't teach you to have that burning, desire within you. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah. And I don't. Like I said, you can't teach them, right? You can't teach them. And I don't even know if it's a burning desire as it is. Maybe some people just don't have good conversational skills, I guess. I mean, we have one's coming to my mind who is a sweet person. Love this individual a lot as a person, but just struggles with continuing to connect people. But I connect with the person really well. I think everybody in the company connects with the person well, but they have a hard time connecting with a client well to drive their business. So what do you think that's all about? Why do you think that's an issue for that particular person?
Well, I think it's a skill. No matter what, you have to look at it as a skill. So we spend a lot of time on role play in our company, right? And because I know that when you get into these critical conversations, how you handle it, the questions that you ask, the confidence that you bring to it, that's going to determine the outcome. So really what that person probably is not doing is they're probably not spending enough time in their downtime perfecting these conversations that they need to have with the clients.
So it's really not that they don't have the ability to be good with people, meaning connecting with, is they haven't perfected or even gotten decent skill enough
Correct.
to make people feel good.
Because they need more reps.
Actually that's interesting. I guess some people have really good relationships and know how to talk to people when they know them. And other people, because when another one comes to mind, which is another female, who this particular individual has been with us a long time, and she connects with every single human being on the planet, and everybody loves that person.
Yes.
But yet is not overly skilled, just really great connecting to people.
I don't even think she knows that we have a script book, Bernie.
I don't think she's
you could give her one and she'd be like, what is this?
You could have given her one 10 years ago
Yeah.
and she's never even opened it up.
Yeah, and recently, that agent, she got involved with a deal that was going to get canceled, and we were going to get fired on a purchase and a sale. She gets involved in it, and she saves the whole thing.
I know.
Right?
Honestly,
she's
most
unbelievable.
She's really the most spectacular personality that I probably have ever come across. And I went on a presentation with her on a very expensive home, a $3 million property. And I did the presentation for her. She was a little nervous about that particular one, so I went with her. And so she didn't say, I said, do me a favor. I'm like, just let me do it. She's like, okay. And so I went in, we got the listing signed and all that kind of good stuff. But she only opened her mouth. Maybe 4 words came out the whole time we were there. And the client looked at her at the end and goes, "Oh my God, I just love you. You're great."
That's awesome.
I'm like, and I walked out and I said to her, I'm like, "I don't know how you do it, but you just have to be there and smile at people, and they
Sure.
just melt in your hand." All right. So the next question: what's harder, holding an agent accountable or training an agent?
I think a lot of people would say the training, but I'm gonna say accountability, right? Because the training never ends. We're always training, but it's not always gonna stick, right? What can they even really receive at any given time? But it's the accountability, because they have to be willing. Not only do they have to participate, but they have to be willing to be held accountable. And every agent's going to need a little bit of a different accountability mechanism. So the coach really struggles with, well, what do I need to hold this person accountable for in order to move their business forward? Because it's going to look different for every agent.
It is. And I think people like the idea. I think people like training, and I think they like to learn, but there's a difference between learning information. And here's where we talk about like brokerage firms who every agent maybe thinks their brokerage firm is the best. And so when you and I've talked to a lot of agents where they'll go, "Well, we have training at our firm."
Yes.
So they like training, they like knowledge, they like information, but it's not the information and the knowledge that makes them a great agent. And if we look up at anything about growth, personal growth is about accountability.
Yeah.
And so they love the training. They clamor for, "Hey, by the way, we're going to have a sales training on listing homes today." Everybody shows up. We're going to have a conversation about how being better with your clients. Everybody shows up. It's a training session. But yet the accountability piece of actually getting them to do it is where it falls short.
Well, I talk to a lot of agents who probably don't need us as much for the accountability. And then the real question is going to be, how fast can I help you build your business, right? Because if you're really a strong-minded person and you're regimented in how you approach your life and you're going to hold yourself accountable, well, then we get to have a whole different conversation with you. We get to move really fast, and that's where sometimes we can have a lot of fun with newer agents in the business.
Yeah, that's always, I think, my struggle is just getting them to act through accountabilities. But all right, so team owners thinking about purchasing leads.
Sure.
We do a lot of that, right? We spend a lot of money in that particular area. Should an agent have leads only by earning them? So should it be leads earned, or should they just be given away to everybody?
Well, and I know there are teams out there where like it's kind of like Switzerland, right? Everyone gets a fair shake.
Yeah.
I think you have to do a little bit of both. And as long as we've been doing this, I think our current process works pretty well. We will way overshare leads with agents in the beginning. So they're going to get a lot more leads than they probably even can handle early on for at least the first couple months. Right. And then over time, we have to start letting their performance dictate how many leads they're going to be able to receive. And so there's going to be just an adjustment period where then eventually they will earn everything that they have to get.
They'll eventually, if they're going to do if we overload them in the beginning and they do a good job, then they're never going to go off of leads.
No.
But if they don't do a good job in the beginning, then they never get a chance to really be successful. So they've really got to perform early on, right? The first couple of months, I would guess.
I mean, they have to show some promise, right? We can't control some things, right? If buyers are purchasing, but it's 6 months down the road, or, it's a new construction home that doesn't close for a while, we can still take some of those factors into how we measure them. But you'll know, right? You give an agent 70 or 80 leads in 2 months, you're going to know whether or not there's a chance that it's going to work for them.
It's good. So keeping agents long-term, what motivates them? Is it recognition? Is it money? Is it accountability, competition? What is it that keeps agents around long-term?
If it was as simple as money, you'd never lose anyone because they could keep showing up every day and earning it. Right.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
And so it's definitely not money, even though they probably think it is. I'm going to say it's actually recognition, and that can look very different for most. Right. So is recognition building your own brand? Is recognition just being celebrated in the sales meetings? Is recognition just being acknowledged for what you do within the company and feeling valued? Right. Because maybe you're a trainer or you're a team leader. Right. Recognition is why I think agents eventually move on if they don't feel like they're getting the recognition they deserve.
Yeah. Mike Ferry has always said to me, or to all of us as coaching clients, that recognition is the biggest motivator for a human being. And I always try to do that to my best ability. I'm probably better with others than I am with all. But I do agree with you. If money was the factor, we would see a whole different set of success, right?
Sure.
If accountability was it, they'd be clamoring for accountability. They don't care about accountability. But if you recognize somebody, and we had somebody recently who was in one of our sales meetings, and they were fairly newer realtor, maybe 6 months or something. And I had acknowledged that person in front of the whole team about how well they were doing. And I actually had heard that there was some unhappiness with that particular realtor up to that particular point. And so, but the realtor was doing a really good job. And so I acknowledged that realtor in front of the whole group. And the next day I saw this realtor's wife in the gym. And he said, man, he goes, she just loved that you did that. And she feels really grateful. And so
Wow.
just saying really positive things about people, I think, I think really changes the dynamic.
It's tough
know?
in the sales world that we're in because, we don't want to be giving out participation trophies, right? Like that's not what we're in it for. But you have to find little ways. So like one of the things we do every month is we have that $1 Million Club on our monthly awards presentation that we do. So anyone who sells over $1 million in a month is going to get their name up in lights, and we're going to acknowledge the hard work that went into it. And just today, one of our newer agents was texting me, just making sure that his closing on the 31st was recorded because it actually was supposed to originally close on the 1st. He's like, I just want to make sure you guys saw that it closed on the 31st. So that should put me over $1 million for the month. Right. And so just in that alone, because he wants to make sure that his name gets to go up on the board.
Yeah. I think I know.
Which is fine.
Yeah. No, I think I know who you're talking about. And the thing is, what's cool is just seeing their name in lights, as we say, because we make a bigger deal about it, right? Is something. And so you and I probably have to keep learning things about how we can continue to keep inspiring people. And if you're watching out there, acknowledge your people. I remember, and I was talking to an agent who was with us and left and then came back. And that agent said to me when that agent came back, I remember the time when you said this to me, and you always made me feel like no matter what I was struggling with, that I was a powerful agent and that you were super proud of the way that I was growing. And sometimes I think as leaders, Curt, you and I, because we're so stuck in the minutia of the business that we're in, sometimes we forget that all it just takes is patting somebody on the back and just saying, hey, listen, I'm glad you're here today, or I like what you did. Or we did a lot with our ISA team. That's one of the great things about getting those reports from our daily activity from our ISA department, in that when somebody goes out and has 4 or 5 or 6 or 3 or 5 or whatever it is, appointments that they've set over for an agent, and I see your emails, and I'll go up to them and say, man, that was an amazing job, right? Is just continuing to keep inspiring your people. Because one of the things that we have to always understand is we might be organizing the Army, but they're out there taking all the shots, and they're out there the ones that are having to deal with people that frustrates them at times, and they're taking the calls on Saturday evenings and Sunday mornings, and they're dealing with not just the client upset with them about something that didn't go right in the transaction, but also the agents that are frustrated in that process. So I think it's really important that we always continue to keep acknowledging people in that way. I think that helps build really great culture. All right, this is a fun one. So we have 10 agents, 1 to 10, that group training them.
Okay.
Culturally, what does that look like? And what are the different challenges between that and 11 to 25 agents?
Got it.
Cultural difference. And then what's the difference between 25 and 50 and 50 and 100? So how does the office look, and how do the people feel at 10 or under 10, and then in those different set of groups of agents?
We've definitely felt this as we've grown over the years, right? When you're 10 or less, you're a family. Right? Everybody knows everything about the kids at home and the spouses. Like you are such a tight knit group that changes can be made pretty easily. Communication isn't much of a challenge. And you'll literally feel like I'll fall on the sword for that person, right? That's how it feels when you're that group. And you can do a lot of good at that level. But when you get beyond that and you start getting closer to 20 or 25, what happens is you start to have like intra-group dynamics where the culture will feel just a little bit more strain at times because maybe personalities clash and people aren't, as friendly to others. And so now you've got like little cliques within your group that you have to almost manage a little bit. And so that's interesting to watch happen. And then really what I think you have to start to think about as you get beyond, like, let's say 50, right? Or even close to 50, the whole system has to be regrouped to where, yes, we are here to service the agent. That's what our job is. But everything has to go into the client experience. So our buyers and our sellers, everything we do every day needs to be going in the direction to support them and make sure that their experience is the best.
So I guess early on with, let's say 10 or less, we can really focus on the agent to create great service, which is what we have done.
Yes.
And then we've seen that as we get to 25, where we have to pay more attention through systems that the client is taken care of. And that's harder because we're a client-based business, right? So without the clients, we have no business. So they are number one, right? Agents are number two to us because we're teaching them how to treat the agents. But as it expands, our challenge is making sure those standards to the client, and those are more difficult for us, right?
Yes.
So now we got, let's just say 100 agents, right? Culturally, it's a challenge, building great culture inside of our company, holding up our company standards. I know there's people who have thousands of employees and they have their core values and they have their mission statement and they have their rapport that they have within their company. Where do you see our challenge being as we scale from, let's just say 50 to 100 agents? We know what 50 probably looks like. I think as many as we've had is in the high 30s at one point. So you look at this going, okay, between 35 or 40 to 50 is probably not a big deal, but from 50 to 100 is a big difference.
Well, I think at that point, it's a branding conversation, right? How are we positioning our brand in the market? How are we making sure that the agents want to affiliate with our brand, right? What does the client see when they hear the name of the brokerage, right? Is our vision clear to everybody, right? To make sure that they know what they're even aligning themselves with. You look at Apple, right? Why does someone go out and pay, at this point, I think you're paying like $1,800 for a new iPhone, right? Well, you can buy plenty of other phones out there, but why do you buy the iPhone? Well, because there's an identity tied to that brand, right? In order to scale much past the size that we are today, the brand is actually going to have to speak louder than what we probably have right now.
So you lean more on the brand and the customer.
Correct.
Because you can't babysit the agent like you can if there's 10 or 20. It's got to be just more systematic, right?
Correct.
As you and I are talking a lot about technology and AI as we continue to scale the business. So, all right, let's talk about team owners. Again, we're going back to team owners, team leaders. How much is the standards enforced in a team make the biggest difference? And let me just give you more context on this. When I go on stage and I'm asked a lot about like how our systems work and how our accountability measures, and people will come up to me after and they'll say, God, like, how do you get your agents to do some of the things that you said, right? And now we've had probably the highest producing company in the state of Tennessee per agent production, right? Personal production, probably of any office in the entire state. So I base those on the standards. But a lot of teams don't have that. So what are the teams missing out on by not applying higher levels of standards to your group?
Well, I look at the relationship we have with the agent as really an agreement, right? And their agreement with us is that they're going to try to follow our process. But my agreement with them is that I'm going to follow through on what we're promising them, right? And so if I sit down in an interview and I say, I can promise you I'm going to get you to 6 figures a year in income faster than anyone else can, I better follow through on that, right? And so as a team leader, you've got to be like ready to make sure that you're going to do that for your agents. And in order to do that, you've got to have your systems in place. So how many leads are they going to get? How are you going to ask them to follow up with the leads? What's that system that you're teaching them? Are you giving them good scripts to use, right? Are you holding them accountable for the follow-up standards that you're going to set, right? What kind of fail-safes have you put in? Ours is called our ISA team, right? They're there to call the leads and make sure the leads are being taken care of, right? And then do you circle back around and make sure that they're showing up to their appointments, right? Getting outcomes from that. So you need to have all of those touch points from your agents in order to have any idea where you need to improve.
So do you think then, let's go into the standards we have today. Maybe the standards we used to have, the standards we have today. Let's just hodgepodge this together for a minute, because we have vacillated a little bit, or have had this kind of rolling hill on our level of accountability. So where we are today, do we have high enough standards today, or do you think our standards are not high enough? So in other words, do we have too high of standards or too low of standards today?
They're not high enough if you want to try to keep producing the level of agent that we've produced in the past, right? So unfortunately, in order for us to try to grow the business, we're making the choice to kind of lower our daily expectation of what the agent can do, which unfortunately is going to lead to them making less money in the long run, right? That's just, it's going to happen, right? So, but in order to have a team larger than, let's call it 30 or 35 agents, that's what we're choosing to do as team leaders, right? Otherwise, we're just going to have the same size team from here on, right? Which is a fine business model. It's just not what we're aiming to do, right? We won't be able to affect as many lives. So what's going to happen is we're going to have more checks and balances in our system to make sure that the bare minimum is happening, meaning the client is being served, and the agents will have to, through their own success, earn more opportunities. So in order to become an agent in our company that can go out and sell 60 or 70 houses a year, it's probably going to take a person in our company now a little bit longer to do that. Whereas 5 years ago, you might have been able to pull that off in year one if you showed up and worked really hard.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, we saw agents doing 30, 40 deals in year one where our standards were so high, but our retention was low.
Correct.
And so it's interesting, and I'll give you guys some contents on this, is we had high standards and we had very high per person productivity. But the challenge that we had is they didn't want to be held accountable for so long. So we were looking at them going, hey, you want to make 100,000, you got to really make 250 or 300 to be in our group. Well, we were losing probably some pretty good people because of those standards that we acquired. We felt like we were still doing the right thing. And I'm not saying that wasn't the right thing. And if you're a team owner today, don't give up on that idea, but it's really not scalable. And that's the challenge with it, is if you want to go out and have 100 or 200 agents, you just don't find that many agents that want to produce. So you're almost kind of meeting the mental desire of the realtor. We were looking for, like, what we call it, the Navy SEALs of real estate. We were looking for the ones that really wanted to go out and make a big impact in the real estate business. But the challenge is we had a hard time finding that.
Well, and I even find it in the interview process. So you ask an agent who's coming on board, how much money do you want to earn? And I mean, first of all, most of them can't even really spit out an actual number. They'll use a very generic term, like, I want to earn 6 figures, right? So now I have to then go back in and ask for some clarity there. Is that $100,000 a year, or is that $900,000 a year? And I'll ask them that exact question. And normally they'll kind of say, oh, gosh, I didn't know 900 would be possible. It certainly is, right? It certainly is, if that's
still 6 figures,
important to you. Yes. And so that's the challenge.
That's a good question, by the way. Yeah, I love that. Now talk about some clarity.
Well, and that's where you really see how small we think.
Yeah.
Right. That's how small we think, is people think that $100,000 is enough. If you've been out and about in Nashville lately, $100,000 feels like minimum wage to me.
Yeah. You know, that's so much fun. You know, years ago, before I ever got into real estate, let's go back 24, 23, 5 years ago, something like that, I was in franchise sales. And so there's only so many things that I could say in the franchise world based on the laws that I was allowed to, you know, and give information to, especially if it was a potential client. So I would always ask them then, I said, you know, let's just assume you invested a couple, 100,000, 200, 250,000 to go into a franchise, pay the franchise fee, do the build out, all of these things. how much would you expect to make in 1 year? And you know what's fun? The answer always was, well, at least 100,000.
Wow.
I'm sorry, at least six figures.
At least 6 figures.
I want to make at least six figures. So let's call it 24, 25 years ago, it was still the same response, which I think is funny. Not thinking how much inflation and how much incomes have grown in the last 25 years, but it's the response is still the same. So why do you think that's the response?
I was just going to try to
yeah.
add on to it. And here's where I think it really comes down to it is we're going to go back to the accountability part of this thing. If you say a term that's generic, like 6 figures, as long as you land somewhere in that realm, you're actually hitting your goal, right? But if someone were to tell me, well, I'd like to make $300,000, right? That's very specific, right? And I'm going to know for sure whether or not 300,000 was actually important to them at the end of the year, because they'll either be there or they won't be.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah. Well, because if they're specific about 300,000, then their probably income is used to that. They probably came from a job potentially where they need that kind of money. And I love those people. Those that actually have a lifestyle that they need $300,000 to live. Those are the ones that are going to do it all day, because they're only going to rise to their level of their life, right? If you're used to, I had a sales agent, real estate agent, years ago, where I had this particular individual that I'm talking about right now, and then an agent on our team that's been with us now for 15 years. And they were, he was my first agent, and then there was another agent that came in right after him. And this one agent is out selling 70, 80 homes a year, and this other agent who was splitting the other half of those leads, and the agent that was selling 70, 80 homes a year is making several $100,000, and the other one is making about 75,000. Same leads, just split in half.
Sure.
And so I would sit down, and so I finally asked the agent, I said, let me ask you, in the past job that you had, how much money did you earn in that job? And he goes, oh, well, I was earning about 65,000 a year. And I'm like, okay. I said, so if you're earning 75,000, that really meets all of your financial needs based on the last career you had. And he says, yeah, no, I'm really happy. Right. And so I then made a decision, and I don't know if you know this, but then I made a decision to hire the third agent, who is still here. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take this individual who's earning less than should on the half leads, and I'm going to add another agent into that lead flow.
Sure.
And that agent sold 40 homes with the other half of those leads.
They were taking a quarter of the leads.
They were taking a quarter of the leads, selling like 40 houses and making several. So I started realizing it's like, this is where the agent has an income that they're used to. And when that income is met, which is why my mentor, Mike Ferry, always says, raise your level of living standard. Dream about big houses and dream about nice cars, because if not, then whatever you have is okay. And then that level of income is okay. But if you go out and buy a little nicer car or a little nicer house, then you raise the standard of what you absolutely need. I remember back when I was in real estate and I bought a new home, and Mike Ferry, my mentor, said, why don't you buy this home? And I wish it was the home I really wanted. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's important to me, I guess, but I'm a little, basically I was a little nervous about it because it was a little more expensive than I wanted. Anyways, make a long story short, I ended up purchasing that property, and then my income doubled. And that's when I started understanding, you raise the level of your lifestyle, your income has to follow, which means you have to get out of your comfort zone to practice the scripts and dialogues. You have to get a little bit better because you have to close a little harder, because now I had a much bigger mortgage payment, right?
Sure.
And then I went and bought nicer things, nicer cars, nicer clothes. And then you have to keep raising your level of standard. And when you raise your level of standard, it forces you to change who you are. So you really are, your income in the real estate business is nothing more than a product of what you need to have to survive.
Or what you think is possible.
Well, I love your response, because you said, well, 6 figures, is that 100,000 or 900,000? What a great, and their attitude probably is, well, I didn't know that was possible.
It catches every single one of them off guard, and they always have to collect their thoughts. It's really fun to watch.
That's awesome. Okay, so now we're talking to team owners. What are team owners right now? What do you think they're focused on in their business that they shouldn't be focused on? Now, again, most of them are smaller team owners. Let's just say 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 12 agents. And they're looking at things different. We used to probably look at things like that too, right? So I'm not knocking anybody that's doing that, but what is it you think they're focusing on at that level that they shouldn't be paying attention to?
I used to get really hung up early on the individual agents I would meet that I was trying to bring into the company, and I'd like certain people, right? And I'd think that if I could just get them over here, that it was going to help our team. And so you almost feel like the people were a very important part of the process, right? Which they are. I mean, we still want great people. But where I think you have to start to realize the difference is made is in the process that you're going to build, right? You've got to build your system to support the people. And then in that, you can make people more successful through the leverage. I think that's where some team owners are going to just get it a little bit backwards, is they're going to want to find the person first. No. You've got to build the system first.
I was being and had still been coached down with Mike Ferry for over 10 years personally. And so I remember talking with him in the early days, and you had just joined us and our company was growing. And I would have to send Mike Ferry every single month my P&L and then my breakdown. And he would discuss me all my challenges that I was dealing with. And he says, he kept saying to me, he goes, well, are you making the decision at some point to leave personal sales and just build the team? And I remember I kept saying to him over and over, he'd asked me that several different times, and I would say, Mike, I don't really trust anybody but me. And I don't want to put any of the pressure of my family's financial picture on other people. And so as long as I'm selling, I'm in control of whatever I'm doing. And one day, Curt, he said something that was like, whoa, this is so powerful. And if you're a team owner, I hope it resonates with you. But he goes, Bernie, he says, what you're doing is, he says, you're putting your thoughts and your concerns on the behavior of other people. And I said, absolutely. And he says, we're human beings. And so we all have lives and we're flawed. We're going to the leads you provide are not always going to be their priority. Their family's going to be their priority, and
Yes.
and their kids are going to be their priority. And that's acceptable. And you should. And I said, no, I get it, but I'm not feeling comfortable investing fully into them and then leaving what I'm doing to earn an income. And here were the words that came out of his mouth. He says, remember this. He says, it's not that you can't trust that your system's going to be fully fulfilled by your people because they're human beings. But what you can trust is a system. And systems will never fail you. And if you build a system to support the company, you'll always win in this game. And that's when I started going, okay, what does this mean? And so we started talking about the ISA team. That's how the whole ISA team came about, is because we were, I think at that time, frustrated, pulling our hair out. Are they calling the leads?
Correct.
Are they having the right conversations or whatever? And then you and I started stacking up this system. And I think that maybe even smaller team leaders, if you just build a system around what you're trying to accomplish, the systems will thrive at such a level. And that's all we've done, right? We just keep adding systems to our business. Right? Anything to add to that?
And I think that the agents, they don't even understand what they don't understand, especially when they get into this business. So for them, it's just a sandbox, right? And if you give them the process to follow, most of them are going to follow it confidently, and then you have really great success with those people.
Yeah. And I would say that's probably one of the best advices that I heard, and I think it's probably been one of our great successes we've had in our company, is the systems, the accountability measures that we had. Why do agents leave? So not only why do they leave, why do they tell us they leave? And then what are their real reasons why they're leaving? Like, so they have a conversation with us. So why do they leave? What do they tell us the reason they leave? And then what is it they really leave for?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with why they really leave, because I think that getting clarity on that has taken me a while, but I think I'm pretty clear on it. They leave because we change more than they want us to. Okay. Our need to change is being driven by the market, by competition, by everything else that's going on around us, right? So as a company, we're constantly having to evolve, right? And so that's why we make changes in our program, right? The agent leaves because they mentally at some point get disenchanted with the fact that the business is changing, right? But that's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why they leave. Now, what they tell us normally is they're going to tell us that they want to build their own business, right? And that way they can go, start marketing themselves and creating something that's going to last or whatever their story is, right? That's what they tell us they want to do.
And that's fine. I think, we've always said we're either a stepping stone or a career, and we'll accept you either way. And if you're here for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, we're going to be a big cheerleader for you when you walk out. And if what it allows us to do too is, because we spend so much time with them, is how do we continue to keep building support and systems around them, so they stay.
Yes.
Right. That's our goal. But no matter what great systems you have, people are going to want to move on. So what's more important, a great system or great people?
You can only have one.
I'll let us answer it in the way we want to have it. I think it's just your answer.
I still think it has to be the systems, because a really great system will support great people and it'll support subpar people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if the system is good enough, it will make your great people even better. Right. And so it actually does that job for you.
I love that. And I think the systems are the key, but you can't do it without great people. And your answer was perfect in that you have a really great system and it supports really great people, and really great people want to work in a really great system.
Yes.
I think you have to have both, but I think that you could have really great people and crappy systems and they're going to walk out the door. So if you're going to, what comes?
Because there's no predictability in that world.
Yeah. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? And I would say this, you build the system first and great people will want to stay.
Yes.
And if you do it the other way around, you're probably not going to get them to stay.
Because life happens, right? And we've all heard the stories where, your key people, someone's got a really great person and then life happens, right? And whether or not that person's still around, it leaves a gaping hole in that business, right? Whereas we are trying to build a business that no matter what, every day it's going to function, whether 10 agents show up, 20 agents show up, 50 agents show up, 5 agents show up to work today, it's still going to function.
Yeah, I love that. So what's the hardest part about running a team that most people don't understand?
From the team lead perspective.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Or yes, let's go there. But if anything else you want to add to that question too, because that's a pretty loaded one.
And there's probably a lot of hard things. And what I'm going to say is just managing the enormity of all the steps in the process that you have to manage as a team leader, because you've got people involved at every intersection, right? It's the title company, it's your lender, it's the administrative staff, it's the person who answers the phone at the front desk, it's your inside sales team, it's your agents, right? You've got to manage everything that links those people together. Right? That's what's hard, is the enormity of it, right? Because there's always something somewhere that's creating challenges for you. You don't ever show up to work on any given day and have nothing to solve.
Has there been times in here that you think we've overcomplicated it?
We did when we were trying to figure out the system. We certainly overcomplicated it, right? And that's where I think right now, that's the biggest technology opportunity for AI to help us with, is how can we take the steps that we know are needed, but make the lift lighter for our people, right? Like, so for example, a lot of old school agents who are still working with archaic technology nowadays may be sending their clients' properties straight through the MLS, right? In fact, I just had this debate with one of our agents this week who was still utilizing that tool. When we've got a really great tool in Ylopo that will automatically set people up on these searches, and it's dynamic, and it will notify you when they're looking at properties, and it will make sure that, it's like the umbilical cord to your client. And, so you sit there and you kind of scratch your head a little bit and you're like, why would you be using this tool over here when we've given you the perfect tool that almost does your job for you? So as you're building out these systems in your infrastructure, technology is the only way to really make it easier.
That is such an interesting part, and it brings up a different part of that question, and that is, as team owners, because of the time we spend learning things and all the systems, things like that. And our financial contribution into building systems, I think team owners probably should understand that we're building a service where the regular agents aren't going to be able to afford to
Correct.
scale at. So we spend lots of money in support systems and software that make it easier for the agent that the outside agent would probably never have, right?
So,
Is that sort of where the
I've run
complexity
the numbers
comes in?
on this, Bernie. And if you, as an independent agent at any brokerage in town, wanted to go out and purchase every piece of technology that we use, it would be like $2,400 a month for an individual agent to turn every piece of technology on that our agents get for free.
Wow, $2,400 a month.
A month.
That the agent would have to pay.
The agent would have to pay that out of pocket. And so, there they are, $28,000, $30,000 in the hole just to run with the same tools that we're giving them for free every day.
Yeah. And some of them, because they don't have lead generation opportunities, some of those systems they would probably never have, but they probably should have because they need lead generation. And what they don't understand is some of these systems you're talking about are touch systems and text systems and email systems and communication systems that take people from the rafts of underneath the ground and pulls them up when something interesting happens, and it does it automatically for them. So the client kind of raises their hand. They might have not spoken to that agent for months and months.
Bernie, I'm not even including the marketing that goes into that. I'm just including
you're just talking about the systems
basic
itself.
systems.
All right, so let's just say we started over.
Okay.
We're at zero. Helping those people that are going, hey, I think I want to build a team. This sounds really interesting. I think we start at zero. What would we do different?
Knowing what I know now about the fact that the formula of having your agents come into the office regularly was really a formula that we got stuck on for a long time. You and I both believed that it was like our secret sauce, right? Knowing what I know now, I would say starting over from zero, I would just skip that step. And we can go straight into just finding really great people that are able to make it work from home, right? And then figure out how to scale it a little bit quicker that way. Because I know that was some of our attrition over the years too. And sometimes agents didn't even want to talk to us because it's like, well, why would I drive all the way to your office if I can just work from home? Yet what they don't realize is how much money they're leaving on the table and surrounding themselves with top producing agents every day. So there was a tug that we felt like we were on the right side of it. But if we had to start over again from zero, I would just skip that step.
I am on the same agreement in that I would have done this sooner that we're doing now. And the sad part though about us doing it this way, and this is the sad part, is it really doesn't put the agent in the best position to succeed. But it doesn't matter what we know. It only matters where we meet them. And our challenge in connecting with realtors was, hey, do you want to go out and earn $300,000 to $500,000 a year? I can show you how to do it. And they all said yes until they realized that, wait a minute, I got to change who I am in order to get there, right?
Yes.
So what I love about us is unfortunately, we could have 50 agents and sell a bunch of houses. Now we got to have hundreds of them to sell the same amount of homes because you got to dilute it all down. And what's fun when we announced this to our group and said, listen, you guys can just go work from home, go do your own thing. Of course, we don't really see them anymore, but the production also starts to change. And you can just see the production starts to change because there's no real level of accountability other than making sure that they're following the leads and they have that conversion percentage. But the training, the coaching, the role playing, and all the things that we've promoted for years, you're seeing all that starting to dissipate, which means that you have a less educated sales process agent today. You have a agent who makes less money. Now they're happier because they can go do what they want to do, but they're certainly not as effective, right?
Not even close.
Yeah. So if you were, let's say today, we were going to give advice to 3 things for a team owner to do first, what would the first 3 things be?
Number one, you've got to get a really great CRM, right? Because until you have somewhere to manage all the leads, right, you're going to have a really hard time keeping tabs on what's happening, right? So that's number one. Number 2, you're going to need to find some sort of a key support person to help you, right? Because most of the team owners I've met, they're either still in production at some level, or they have no interest in being in production, but they also probably aren't going to be the ones recruiting and training and everything else, right? There's always a different dynamic there. So you're going to need to go hire one really dynamic recruiter, trainer, team leader, whatever that is. You got to find a person, right? And you and that person are going to have to be like connected at the hip for a while, right? And then number 3, you are going to have to invest.
Yeah.
Right. And so
that's hard for people to think about laying out cash and how much cash do I have to lay out in order to get this team off the ground.
Well, and you've got a lot of teams that are popping up right now that are able to pull this off fairly affordably, right? Because I hear it in the recruitment conversations I have based on the systems they're using and where the leads are coming from. And I know a little bit about how like the op cities of the world work and, you know, how being on Zillow preferred works, right? It's totally free for these team owners, but it's going to be short-lived unless they've got the systems behind it to make it work.
Yeah, I actually really loved the fact that we invested all that money in lead distribution. Now what's happening is it's giving other teams opportunities, which is fine. What I love about that, if I can be frank about it, is other teams getting opportunities for lead distribution, is it just makes us think bigger and better out of the box. So leads are certainly part of the equation, but all the growth systems in addition to all of those types of things, a lot of these teams don't have to worry about because they're like, well, if I get Zillow or OpCity leads or whatever it might be, then I have leads. As you know, just because you have leads, you don't retain agents. And that's the part I think that people need to understand is leads are certainly a great building foundation off team ownership and team scaling, but they still leave. And if you don't have good culture and you don't have really good systems to support those people outside of those lead distribution, outside that lead distribution, then you still have a lot of the same similar problems that we have. And this has been fun. What we should probably do is probably sit down and do this maybe once or twice a month, where we're just talking about our struggles. I found more value, Curt, in that people who are watching these things go, hey man, this is just real, and he's talking about his problems. And I do this a lot in my podcast where I'll just say, this is where my struggle was here, and I learned this the hard way, right? And I think there's a lot of team owners out there right now that probably could find so much value in what we just talked about over the last hour, and really kind of 2 hours since we did the first hour without recording it. But I want to thank you, A, for being a great partner and associate with me, and we're just in this fight constantly, and we're gonna win it, man. No matter who, we're in the 15th round and we're taking a licking, but
well, and I think there's a lot of really great agents out there that value this type of opportunity, right? So if you're starting something as a team owner, just know that you will find your people. You will. You just have to keep trying.
You have to keep trying. You can never give up, and always continue just to keep working different angles, because it may not work the first time, may not work. How many times have you and I tried things and, it may have had some success and we learned some things off it, but we scrubbed it and moved to different things. And it might be the case with what we're working on right now.
Sure.
But my vision today is different than even it was last year, in that I believe with the foundations that we're building, the systems that we have, and hiring really great quality people, like really great smart people that come in and help us scale it, there's really not anything we can't do. So thank you for everything.
Appreciate it.
For all of you guys, thank you so much for everything that you do, for watching. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. If you have any comments, we'd love to hear from you. Curt and I'll answer any questions you guys have on team building. We'd love to hear from you. Thank everybody. Everybody have an awesome day today. Take care.